Hello, this is Catherine Dubberly, the Answer Lady. I'm a big fan of Kiss Looms. I greatly enjoy mine, and I am cooperating with Kelly at Kiss Looms to make you a playlist of all the basic techniques that you might ever want to know on all of the looms. So welcome and enjoy. Welcome to Adventures in Entrelac. I am going to show you how I made this pillow, and it was a learning experience. I am using Ruth Airey's method. Ruth is one of the best knitters I know, but she doesn't like to make videos and gave me permission to make one using her method. And although it is her method, I was not completely faithful to it in every detail. She pioneered the method using a much thicker yarn and different settings on her Kiss loom. I used a number 4 yarn, 2 of them, worsted weight. This one is Red Heart with Love, and this one is Mary Maxim's Starlet. Both are soft and inexpensive, and they work very well together. And necessarily, I had to change little bits of Ruth's plan in order to make these yarns work at the gauge that I achieved. You should be able to get this gauge using a Kiss regular gauge loom with no washers, or a small gauge loom with 3 to 4 washers, depending on how tightly you knit. Plus, it's not absolutely critical that you match the gauge perfectly, but it needs to be close because we match up 20 rows with 14 stitches in every square. Please be kind. You will see me fumbling as I learn to follow Ruth's instructions, and I left the fumbles in at the request of my friends on the Kiss groups so that they would know what's likely to happen. What do we look out for when we learn this new technique? It's not actually terribly difficult, but some things took me 2 or 3 tries, so don't be upset if the same happens to you. Welcome to the adventure of knitting entrelac on the Kiss loom. Before we start to knit the square that you see here, which is the basis of our project, let me ask you to take note of a few things. First of all, this technique is pioneered by Ruth Airey, one of the best knitters I know, and a leader on the Kiss group on Facebook. And she has allowed me to make videos of her technique, but it is her technique. It starts with this one square, and take note of the fact that you probably already do know that when you are knitting on the Kiss with the pegs towards you, I'm over here pointing to myself. Here are my pegs, here are my pins. The stockinette knit side is the part of the fabric that faces you. The purl side is away, and you'll need to have that clearly in your mind to get the various pieces aligned together. Let's jump right in and start with our entrelac project. I'm going to begin knitting and talk while I knit. First, we're going to cast on from right to left, which is what Ruth suggests in her instructions. And for the purposes of this experiment, I'm going to just use the E-wrap cast on. In the future, we may all decide that we wish to do a different and nicer cast on, but this will get the job done. I am using different stitch and row counts than Ruth did. She used a super bulky yarn with lots and lots of washers, so she got a completely different gauge. I did the math so that we can do it with worsted weight yarn. You see me working on my small gauge, but you can also do it on a regular gauge loom. I'm done casting on, so let's start actually knitting the row. I'm going to E-wrap and knit over the first stitch and U-wrap the remainder. With a regular gauge loom, you would not use any washers at all, and your gauge should come out very close to what I'm getting on this small gauge loom. What I have decided on is 14 stitches across so that I can use these short sizes, and 20 rows. So this is row number 1. And I'll knit back and forth and we'll talk a little bit more. I have decided not to slip the first stitch on every row for this experiment. Very often I do, but we'll be rehanging stitches on the sides of the work some of the time, and I have assessed that it seems to me it's going to work better if I have all the edge stitches that could potentially go with the rows. So let's both knit on till 20 rows have been knitted, and then we'll get back together and take those rows off onto a stitch holder. Well, it's actually stitches we'll take off, isn't it? See you then. Now I've completed my first square, and it has to go in a stitch holder. I've ordered some, and they're not here yet, so I'm going to start by using this circular needle, and I've done this before. It's a real handy thing to have. So I'm going to remove the stitches one by one onto this circular needle, starting from the last stitch knitted, which you can tell, of course, from the yarn tail. And let's see how I do. I'm actually right-handed, and for you to see, I need to do this with my left hand. So cheer me on, please. And we'll get this off in a minute. And then we'll be ready to move on to square 2 and the next video. Everything's on the needle, and now I can just lift it off of the loom. Square number 1. When I'm not putting stitches back on something, I can slide them onto this long nylon piece, and then there's really not much chance of them getting lost. See you in the next video.